Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Morning, everybody. Welcome back. It is Monday. It's new kit day, and as promised, this week we are going to be doing the Havoc Marauder from Star Wars The Bad Batch animated series. And the first thing I need to do, since this shares the absolute first thing I need to do is to mask the areas that are going to be clear. Because, you know, something like this, you're going to want to light up. I can understand that. And to do that, you need to make sure the lighting comes out of the holes you want it to come out of. So the first thing I did was measure up for, these are the thruster engines in the back. Now the thing about this kit is it has both a blue sprue and a red sprue of the same exact parts. And that is because it is infinitely cheaper to make two of those than it is to make two separate tools for the separate colors. Now the cockpit windows need the red, but the thrusters at the back need the blue. So let me see if I can find a good example of that on the box here somewhere. Here we go. It shows the back as blue, this back window as red, clear, and the front windshield is red, clear. Excuse me. So I am going ahead and here is the blue sprue and the red one. Now I've gone ahead and put the blue one in the window so that I can do all my measurements. They're the same exact size. If you wanted to use the blue, you certainly could. This is your kit. Make it the way you want to. But to do all of my measuring, I just put the blue ones in, so in case I scratched anything, I wouldn't be ruining the black or the red ones that I want to save for later. And same with the black. Why do I keep saying black? The red bits for the back. Back is the word I was looking for. The back has to be masked off. Now there is a decal provided for this frame, but you know that decal is not going to light block. You're going to want to paint this frame in here to adequately light block. So to do that, you want to mask the clear bits, and that's what those particular masks for. This is why I'm thinking of black, because the wings, very, very much like a TIE fighter. These are TIE fighter wings in all respects except for shape. But they've got the waffle pattern in here that needs to be black, and the framework around it that needs to be the bluish gray. That is, if you are building this like the Havoc Marauder. If you can make this kit anything you want, you can make it seized Imperial armaments, and you're using this in the time of, maybe you're doing the time of Mandalorian or the time of post-Empire, and you are using this model to make your own scratch build. You still might, even if you don't make this gray, you still might want to make this black, or you might want to make it red and green, who knows. But you want to separate this color from this color, the frame from the waffle pattern, and that's what this masking is for. So what I've been doing basically is tracing everything out, cleaning it up on the computer, making the masks, laying it back in place, tweaking the measurements, and I've got a very good and workable masking situation. There is also, this kind of looks, you know, if you look at it right in the right way, this could be a hawk or an eagle head. This looks very much like something you would see on Space 1999, but it also has black panels here, here, and here, and these are provided as decals if you choose to use them. But I still think weathering over paint is much better than weathering over a decal. So I went ahead and made masks for this, because to tell you the truth, what I'm going to do is I'm going to prime this whole thing and paint the whole thing black. And then I'm going to mask the areas that I want to keep black, and then I will paint my grays over top of that. Because there's going to be so much black that it's easier to spray it with a wide swath, spray this whole wing black, and then mask off the areas that I want to keep black. That's why we have these masks made. And that will allow us to paint this somewhat more delicate framework in around it without worrying about getting the the panels themselves dirty. Now there's also a third wing, obviously, that has smaller waffle areas, but they also need the same type of masking. And then there are some raised panels on the sides here. Now I'm just going to make some generic shape masks for those, so that you can pick and choose what colors you want to make those, and we'll be able to keep them separate and safe that way. So now that I've got the clear part masks figured out, and I've got the black headpiece masks figured out, and I've got the black masks for the wings figured out, one last job that stands in front of me, and that is to get these generic rectangle masks made. Once I do that, then we can set about putting some primer on this, and then going with our first black coat. Now this is a snap kit, which means you can get a perfectly good result from snapping the parts together. I still think there are some certain things that I will want to be gluing so that I can clean up the seams. The only thing about a snap kit is you can never really clean up the seams, because unless you glue it, those parts can always work their way, they can always work their way loose. Now the kit comes with your typical round 2 dome base. We've seen this 100 times in the Star Trek kits, and it comes with a steel metal solid rod here. And if you're going to light this, first thing you may want to do is chuck that out and get a tube that is hollow so that you can run your wiring down into the base. So again, I'm not going to close off any options at this point, but my mandate at this point is still not to glue it, or not to light it. Yes, it's Monday, folks. My words are not coming very easily. Smaller parts for landing gear, that's something else you need to decide. Are you going to do it with or without landing gear? The nice thing about this kit is its posability. You can do it wings up or wings down. I got to tell you, as an old-time Trekkie, that looks very familiar. I know that the Imperial shuttles always had the wings that went up and down, but that sure looks like a Klingon ship to me when you look at the wing like that. So certain things, certain designs are universal, I suppose, but the temptation is there, let me say. The next step to do really is to strip off these old masks, since we know that they're working now, and get the parts cleaned up one last time and get them ready for priming. Now I did discover a good, not a great amount, but a good amount, a noticeable amount of flash on my parts. So that's something that you may want to make doubly sure that you've got no flash that is impeding your fit, nor is it going to give you a heartburn when you go to prime this. And here, once I get these last bits off, especially this 3-corner business here, that's what makes me think of an eagle. But yeah, here you can see I've got the blue windows in, and I'll pop these back out now, since I know that I'm going to be painting this. I can prime it without any of those in, certainly prime it without the clear parts, and then go ahead, pop those in, and then protect it as you are building. Alrighty, we've got one last thing to do today, and that is we're going to spray the black on the area. I'm just cleaning up a little spot here for this thing to lay down on. Now that the primer has dried, I'm going to go ahead and spray the areas that are going to stay black, and for that I'm just using the good old Tamiya flat black. I've got a new set of paints, new manufacturer, that I'm going to be using for this build that I've not tried before, so we're going to have some fun with that. But there's no reason to I've only got a little bit of each of their colors, and there's no reason to spend any of that on the black when I can do that just as well with what is sitting underneath here. It's not wanting to sit flat. When I can do the big wide areas with the Tamiya. So that's what we're going to do now. Morning, everybody. Welcome back. It's Tuesday. I say welcome back. I mean, you haven't gone anywhere. It's me. I'm the one that's taking the night off. So you should be saying welcome back to me. I don't know. I've been doing some work this morning. We're going to start getting into some fun painting today. And the first thing I did was put the masks down. I got a boo-boo. You'll have to forgive me. I stabbed myself with a very sharp blade, which, you know, you have to... The sharp blade demands its blood sacrifice, so we're good to go. But the first thing I did was put the masks over the areas, well, firstly over the windows. I installed the window piece into the backside after I had primed everything black and let that dry, put the window in, and now I have covered it over with the masking so that it will stay nice and red. I've also covered over the areas that I wish to keep black. We're going to be painting light gray or medium gray and then a light gray over top of that. So we're going to start with the stuff we want to keep black. And that's most noticeable on the wings. And I was having such a good time putting the wing stuff down that I realized if I didn't stop, I was going to be done and I wouldn't have one left to show on the video. So here is the top wing, the top wing left and right. And this is one of the side wings, top and bottom. And I've got one left done. I've done the top side of that, and I've got to do the bottom. So it's really fun. It's really easy, too. I say that because I've done this a ton of times. But even if you haven't, it can be very satisfying to see once you've done it correctly. The secret is to kind of handle it gently. You don't want to be yanking at it and stretching it all out of shape. I do what I find is fun. Now, this is all black on black on black, so you'll have to forgive me if it's not as visible. I'll bring the light down here. It's not as visible as it would be if you were doing it on a gray background. But what I find the best thing to do is to take this corner, find a corner, line up the corner, line it up, going up the top. And I also have to watch because I have this Band-Aid on my finger, the vinyl wants to stick to the Band-Aid. And it's very, very, very much more cumbersome than it needs to be if you were only, I've lost the use of my index finger here. So I've got this line nestled in against the indent here, where the frame starts. Just line it up against that. Now this is still loose. This has not been laid down. See, that's still fairly loose. And what I'm doing at this point is just working that bottom edge into the recess where the waffle pattern is. So now I've got this line and this line in place, and I can just run my thumb over the rest of it to kind of push down the center, kind of working myself towards this edge. And then you take your fingernail or a toothpick, if that's what you've got, and you make this sharp edge. Push it down in there. If you're lucky, or if you've done this enough times, you will have hit the spot the right the first time. If you haven't, you could still get underneath it with your point of your X-Acto, pull it up, and do a slight bit of repositioning. Now, don't feel bad if you have to trim anything, because you may be slightly tiny off on this edge here, and that will result in it not fitting exactly. Vinyl stretches. There are a myriad of reasons why you may not get an exact fit. So don't be discouraged if you don't have an exact fit. The difference may be in portions of a millimeter. It's not, at this point, it's not all of that world-changing stuff that you have to worry about. If the overlap bugs you, though, you can take your very sharp X-Acto that you have just stabbed yourself with and run it down that edge and peel out the offending bit. Since that is a nice straight edge, and you have, of course, a very sharp X-Acto blade, you can give yourself a nice little trim there. Be careful that you don't cut too much away, because then you've defeated the whole purpose of having a mask on there to begin with. So trim out a little bit if thine eye offends thee, pluck it out. Sorry, didn't mean to get all Shakespeare on you. But there, you just lean it into the corners. Trim out anything that bugs you. And sometimes just the act of trimming it will help, or running the X-Acto will push that further down into that recess. But there you go. It's as easy as doing that, and that saves you from cutting a bunch of short little lines of tape and trying to lay them into that corner. Now we've got one more big mask to do, and that is this shape here. And again, you find a straight edge that you like. I like doing the short here where the goes around this raised detail. Sit yourself down into a straight line. Use either a toothpick or, oh, that just laid in just nicely. Toothpick or the blade. Kind of push everything into shape. And if you've done it well, you're done. That's a lot quicker than if you would have to cut a bunch of tape and run it around the edge. Now, what I'd like to do, particularly on something like this, is once I've got it down, I'd lightly buff it in shape, or buff it in place with the with a Q-tip. You don't want to get any hairs caught in there, but you can just lightly press it down. And if you can see the waffle pattern through the vinyl, that's enough. You don't have to press it down really super hard. But there you go. So that's all of the wings masked. Well, I'm going to paint the wings separately before I put them onto the body. I think the next thing to do on this end would maybe to... I want to be able to paint in here before I attach the head, because once you put that neck piece in, you lose access to a lot of that. So I think I'd rather give a first pass of painting to these pieces before I put them together. And then I can always touch it up if I scrape any paint later. So let's get the head put together and we'll be ready to mix up some gray paint. You know, I was just struck with a case of why the heck nots. And I love a case of why the heck nots. And my case of what the heck nots today is why the heck not? Why not like this? So I'm gonna take a nice little chip red LED. I'm just gonna put it, I'm gonna build a fake wall here so that it's not shining directly out the windows, but it is more directed than just hanging around on the ceiling here. I'm going to make a fake wall here, run the line out to the body, and I'm going to also light up the back here and the engines. That'll be fun. I've cut holes and everything just to run lighting in case I decided to. What the heck, it's Tuesday, I'm feeling chipper, let's do it. Okay, so I just put this temporary, well not temporary, it's going to be there forever, this bulkhead in here that's going to house the light, and it's just a piece of plastic with some L bracket to hold it in. I'm going to CA the bulb, something like that, so that it shines in directly on the windows. I want to make sure, I'm kind of afraid that it's going to be too obvious and too clear, so I might want to disguise it so you don't see the bulb as directly as that. Maybe put some fiber fill over it, or maybe a piece of diffused plastic over it. Okay, now I've got the bulkhead wall in, and I've got a diffuser light in there because I needed it. The windows are so big that you could see that bulb straight on, and it's actually, the windows are so big they probably could have put in a remedial dashboard or cabin wall or something, and it would have dressed it up nicely. But there we go. I've taken the window masks off so that I can see how that's going to look. Looks vaguely Cylon-ish if you see a straight diffused light that's red depending on how you turn it, but it's mostly hidden behind the stanchion between the windows. But it looks something like this. I just have that diffused panel because you could see, it was weird, I had the first one in, but you could see around it, looking in the front windows. They were so big you could actually see around the diffusing panel, so I had to make one slightly bigger. The good news is now I'm ready to close up the headpiece here and try to avoid stabbing my other finger. But you can close up the headpiece now, and I can get on with the painting that I wanted to start half hour ago. Well, the paint I'm using is it's made by a company called Medea. It is New Worlds is the brand, and Heavy Metal seems to be the collection name. It's got a lot of fun names like Decay and Diseased Umber and Surgery Sienna and Vascular Violet and Injury Ochre, Coagulated Crimson. So I give them points for their creative naming. This set seems to be more for gaming figures and zombies and whatnot. But there's a couple of there's a black, there's a white, there's a couple of grays, and that's basically what we're going to be using here with some, accents of color, but really everything's going to kind of come down to that. They mentioned 5 to 10% mix from their reducer, which is thinner, and this looks the same type of bottle that you would see maybe in a Mission Models type of paint. It has a similar feel to it. And if that's any indication, then yeah, it will need thinned down a little bit. And I, as a rule of thumb, if it says 10%, that means for every 10 drops, you put 1 drop of thinner in. And it's as simple as that. It's easy for me to, even a dummy can remember that ratio. So I'm just giving this a good mix, and I'm going to spray out the wings, and I'm going to work some on the base here. I've got this ready to go, and I might do some work on the front, but I'm going to toy with putting in some lighting in the back here, so I might need to be handling that. So let's get some of this paint mixed up and see how well it goes down. I'm going to close the camera down because I don't want to get any spray on the camera. Okay, we're going for our first bit of mid-gray masking or dark gray masking. This shape right here is probably the darkest gray on the entire ship. And I'd like to keep that, so I'm going to mask over it so that when I put my lighter grays on top of it, it doesn't splash onto this and make it any lighter. It covers the middle of it, but not exactly the trailing edge or the outer edges of it, which is fine because then those colors will be softened. That won't be such a jagged, contrasty difference there. Why is this giving me problems? It's because it's on camera. That's all I wanted to do. Just put a mask over that. There. Now I can do the rest. I'm liking these paints. I got to tell you, when I was spraying them, I thought they were going on a bit grainy. You know how sometimes you can, Tamiya's will get that. They'll get real grainy as you're putting them down, and that little balls of pigment there, and I wasn't sure how they were going to dry, but they're drying out beautifully smooth, and I really like how the Zenith Black, how the black, just a little bit of it, really tinted that down or shaded it down. Yeah, they play well together. I'll tell you that. I would maybe. This is just me. It depends on how you like to run your paints. I like to run my paints a little wetter than maybe I should, but I upped the the percentage of the reducer. I put a little bit more in there than maybe was recommended, but I think that improved it a little bit, at least on mine. I know that, you know, for some people, their air pressure or their mix is a very personal thing, and you kind of tend to stick with what works for you. But when you're trying out a new paint, you kind of go back to square one and then figure out how it works from there. And I started with the recommendation, but I think I ended up diluting it just a tiny bit more than that. But I have a tendency to run a higher pressure than is probably healthy. So this is all drying. This is looking great, by the way. These frames are looking very nice. And I'm going to let them sit for a tiny bit before I do anything else. But the next stage would really be to try to go in and put some brighter panels on and mask off some stuff, and maybe make it a little bit zhuzhier, and make some highlight panels and some dark panels, that sort of stuff. Alright, so I've got the blue lights in the back, nice and bright. Those will get covered up by these little lenses. So those are good to go. I've got one more light to put in the center, and that's this red one. Got to pull this out and find a way to put it. Now there's no way that red light isn't going to end up being very, very obvious, because it's going to be very close to the cover. So we're just going to have to live with that. Let me get this one. I had originally thought of using nanos for the blue, and those were too small. Now it's amazing. Something like a red surface mount LED, you can use the tiniest one in the world and it will still light up a room. But for some reason, the blue one the small one is dim, so I had to switch to using the larger ones. So now I've lost control of which one was which, so I'm just checking to make sure. Okay, that's a red one. That's the one that goes in the center there. Okay, let's put all these back. Put these back in the drawer so I don't get them confused with something else. The red one has to go in the center. And then I think we're going to finish today's work. Not that we've got a lot more to do, but what would be a fitting finish for the day will be to take the masks off of the wings so you can see how those turned out. I've got, I want to put the head onto the base here as well, so I can get all that wiring done. I need to find a sufficient piece of tubing to go down the base as well. So still lots to do, but let me see about getting this red bulb in place. And like I said, you can use a tiny nano on a red and it'll still light up a room. So the secret here is going to be how to suspend it in that hole and keep it as far away from the opening, because the closer it is to the opening, the more concentrated the light is and the more obvious that it is a bulb. So let's take care of that little bit and then we'll work on the head. Okay, so we've got one last bit of checking before we seal up the body. Now I've got all the wiring coalesced into two little leads coming out, and of course now I can see the cockpit windows through the masking, and I've got the three lights in the back, and that's all I'm required to put in there. So I am going to clean up the soldering bits and get ready to push these two halves together, and then we'll be able to run. I found a scrap piece of tubing that we can run the wiring down through, but I want to make sure I'm done with all of my stuff so that I can push these two halves together in peace and know that everything else has been controlled. See, there's the wiring. I'm just going to slather the inside of that with the MEK and then push everything together. Everything else can be built from the outside. I just want to make sure that I'm kind of set that all I have to do is push them tighter. The wings clip on from the outside. There's nothing fancy about that. There's 2 guns that go on the front, and then there's a small gun that goes at the back, but everything there is ready. So once I push that to the side and I've got all the clamps on it, then I can turn my feeble attentions to the removal of the masking on the wings, and that will be where we finish for today. Okay, so I've got the main body clamped together. This is going to set overnight because it can, and because it needs to need those sides are going to get a lot of stress on them with the hinging of the wings. So I want to make sure that they have every chance in the world to become as solid as rock. So we're going to leave that. Here are the lens covers for the blue lights on the back, which we have to deal with yet. I've got a couple tiny parts left to put on this kit, the guns that go here, some detail stuff. But right now I'm more interested in taking the masks off of these wings and seeing how they turned out. I think you're going to like the results here, so I'm just going to start at the back and just peel up. Look at that. Look how sharp and crisp those lines are. Gotta like that. What's the old saying? I'll buy that for $1. Now, should you want to, you could customize this kit. Make it anything you want. Make it any 2 colors in the world. Make it any 9 colors in the world. You could pop a big old logo right there. Whether that be a Rebel Alliance logo, an Imperial logo, a Death's Head, what they call a mythosaur these days, could go right there. But you could, put Bob was here on it. I don't know whether you'd want to go around advertising that you are the Bad Batch or not, but I'm just picking up from the same corner that I started with. But look how clean that comes off. Again, this was the corner I started with, and that's the corner I'm peeling with. I like to start and kind of peel fattest to thinnest, sort of like that. Now in this case I'm going to be going thinnest to fattest, but that's why rules are made to be broken. Every rule has an exception. Something I lived my life by. There you go. Nice and clean. Start down in that corner, boom. Careful not to gouge straight down. You want to kind of slide under. And if your alignment was good when you put the masks down, you will have nice clean aligned edges. If you find that there's some areas that you still want to touch up, well, you certainly could. You just take some straight tape along the outside here and carefully spray some black. I don't know whether I would try hand touching that with black. I still haven't put any sort of washes or stains or weathering over this, and I have a feeling that that would take care of anything that came close to an edge. Like if I was right up in here and right up in there and I had a bald spot where the black didn't stick, you might be able to cover that with a laser hit, or you cover that with a wash. I'm going to put a panel wash in some of this, and that's going to take care of a lot of it. So I think the next step here is I want to put a piece of tape over these edges, because this is where the pivoting happens, and I don't want to build up any material there. So I'm just going to put some painter's tape over that, and I'm going to give these wings a quick satin coat, which is going to allow the washes to work so much better. You would do a satin coat and then put your washes over it, and then a flat coat back over top of that. But you don't want to put a wash over a flat coat, because it'll just suck right in and it won't spread the way you want a wash to spread. So these are going to get a quick satin coat. Hey, welcome back everybody. It's Wednesday and work is continuing. We're going to do one more pass on the Marauder here. Now yesterday I went ahead and epoxied in a post so that I had something to hold it by, plus it's going to sit on this stand. And we've got the base coat of the medium gray on it. Now, job one for today is to determine which of these panels I want to keep medium gray, and then we're going to put some of the vinyl over top of those, and then that will allow us to go over this with a pass of light gray. Now, there are a couple of details I have yet to put on the kit, and I can do that now that the main body has been glued together and it is good and solid. Last night I took the clamps off of it, sanded it up a little bit, hit it with some of the gray there just to cover up that seam that I needed to clean up. But right now we're in a good spot to take another pass with like I said, a lighter gray. And once that happens, we can, well, we'll just take it. I'll show you as I go. I hate to get too far ahead of myself. Alright, I've just been using these generic square masks that look like this. I've been putting them down on the hull and then taping off around the outside of them. And what that's allowed me to do is to go in and spray some blocks of color. In this case, it is a mix of German white and new construction yellow. These are not on the new paint brand. These are Model Masters, but as I said, they're very similar. I couldn't find the exact color that I wanted to use, or couldn't mix it in the new paint, so I'm just doing a little bit of accenting of warm beiges and some warm grays. Then I will be able to protect some of those to keep that color in place. Like you see here and here, these are masks that are keeping the color protected that's underneath. I'm going to do some of this on the top, and then we'll be able to put the lighter blending, or the lighter overall coat of gray down. Alrighty, I think that's about as light as I want to go on this. I know once I spray it with the satin, it's going to darken everything down a bit. I'm kind of counting on that. But the next step would be to go back in with the box masks, the little incidental shapes, the generic boxes, and put some darker grays back in here to kind of blend that back. It's getting a little too bright. I even had to go in and lighten up some areas of the wings so that they wouldn't look too out of place. I noticed that the frameworks on these were getting very dark, so I needed to make sure that they still looked appropriate. So I will know better once I have sprayed that to find out exactly how much darkening I need to do. Okay, I think it's time. These things have dried. I think it's time to put the satin coat on and see how much darker this gets, and then we'll know once we get there how much we need to add. Plus, this the semi-gloss coat will allow us the opportunity to put the wash on, because again, like I said, you have to put a wash over at least a semi-gloss surface. It won't go over a flat one. So I'm just taking off these little masks that I have used to protect the gray that was underneath. Oh yeah, it's already darkened up some just by some of these dark plates that have been re-exposed. Those were actual plates, and I'm trying to remember where the now I'm going to leave the masks on that are over the windows. It's going to be important to leave those on because I don't want the spray to fog up the clear bits. But I am going to remove the masking that was around the black portions of the head. Forgive me, I am trying to talk and remove these at the same time. And the last thing to do, once we know what our colors are looking like, is to attach the wings. And then any sort of general blending coat that I need to do to make the wings more appropriately match the color of the body. You do, oh yeah, I like that. See how that kept that darkest color there. Yeah, some of these grays are fairly subtle. We still have the masking over the windows back here and on the engines. But on all the rest of, like I said, I was just talking about it and I didn't do it. Let me go ahead and pull these. Oh yeah, these are the darkest, blackest ones. I wanted the body to the gray to be light enough that you're going to see the decals that we still have to put on. There are an abundance of red pinstripes that would not really show up well against a very dark background. Ooh, I'm liking that. Yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of there. Now it's possible. Yeah, I was afraid that I was going to pull the windshield masks off at the same time. I can replace those. Yeah, as I was afraid of, there was a little bit of black. I could touch that up right there. There was a little bit where the masking didn't quite cover that. But good. Let's go ahead and do the flat or do the satin coat over all of this. Okay, I think I've reached a point where if I want to do any other weathering, I need to put the decals down first because any other weathering would happen on top of that. And there's a lot of red pinstriping that needs to be addressed this way, and then I can start doing some dry brushing. I think I've got the main hull darkened down the way I wanted to make it more consistent with the wings. And I'm looking at where the decals go, and it looks like a majority of them actually go on the wings. So on these edges here. So other than the one that goes down the nose, that was the one I was really being conscious of because of its obviousness, but also because of that's where I'm gonna put any sort of dry brushing over top of. So let me go get the a paper towel and some warm water, and we'll take it from there. And for my last trick today, I put down the decals. Now I've made a compromise. I did not put all the decals down. I put a single stripe on each of the wingtips instead of the double red stripes there, because not only is there no room for two, but there's barely room for one. So you've got that really tall bit of gunnage or raised detail there that I'm not convinced that decal is ever going to sink down around. So much less try to fit that over two of them, or two decals in that area. So we're going to let this sit and see how it looks in the morning. If it doesn't look good, I strip them all off. It's not like the Empire has a history of fine red pinstripes. Okay, we're going to let that sit overnight and come back in the morning and do the final work. I think all that's left to do really is any sort of dry brushing, put the wings on, and then do some dry brushing and then a flat coat over top. Actually, no, put the wings together, flat coat it, and then dry brush it. Dry brushing works so much better over a flat coat than over a gloss coat. So there. Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday. It's the gateway to the weekend, and this mess in front of you can only confirm one fact, and that is we are getting down to the end of this build. And what I am doing, other than cleaning up because, you know, company's here, the Marauder itself, from the screen grabs I've been able to see, the episodes and whatnot, has a fine teal, almost a turquoise paint job that has been worn away. It's very, very distressed. So what I've just been doing is dry brushing on just some accents of that color. And for it, I'm using the Mission Models Lichtenblau light blue RLM 76. It's maybe a little greener, maybe not blue enough, but it kind of works. And the thing is, at this scale, you're never going to get the complete CG pattern that is evident in the episodes. I mean, you're going for an overall effect. You're not going to be able to match it plate for plate. But and after that, I've just taken the my silver or my chrome color and just did a front edge pass on just like the leading edge of wings and the leading edge of the plates where it's going to get the most damage on the nose, and just like that. So last thing to do now that this part is done, and by the way, this morning I put a flat coat over everything, is to put the wings in place. Now, I have been avoiding it up to this point because it was a lot easier to work with it without the wings in, and it's not something you want to do more than once. So look, see, it snaps right in, and it's got a couple of built-in stops on it to keep it from going too far. So that's about as far down. That's about as far down as you get the wing. You can bend it up to about this point. But since it's going to be on a stand, now see, I can take what I know now, having these two pieces next to each other, I need to blend that a little bit better so that it doesn't look like such an obvious seam there, because it would have all had the same amount of weathering happening to it. And this is a very tight fit, which is as it should be. Again, let me see if I can hear the satisfying click of it going into place. And this is why I wanted to have this seam here setting up overnight so that it would be good and solid. This one's not clipping in like the other one is, but that's okay. It's still doing its spin. And again, if you put both of them down in place, you get something like that. Top wing is easy by comparison. It is simply a push to fit, although it does need, I will end up gluing it in. And that is the top most angle. Yeah, I just need to weather in this edge so that it looks like the body underneath it. So those are in, and I'm going to get a wee bit of the glue out because I'm going to glue in that top wing. And for this I had been using the MEK because it really loves this plastic. It melts it, it joins it really nicely, and it doesn't give up once it's got it. I know this whole kit is a snap to fit, and if all you ever do is snap it together, you will get a nice model. But nothing against, you know, go ahead and putting some glue on some pieces. They won't kick you out of heaven for gluing a snap together kit together. Snap together kit together. Say that 5 times fast. But there you go. I'm going to let that top wing glue, the glue dry a little bit, and then we will do some final weathering on it. You'll see the decals that I put down, these red strips. I think the one was plenty. I don't think we needed to go and put 2 of them on there. So that is, let me tilt the camera up. that is looking much like a finished kit at this point. All I need to do now is finish up the bits on the base. There is one last bit of masking to remove, and I will tell you, the most troublesome and delicate piece on this entire kit are these two guns right here. These two guns hang, that's why I waited to the very, very end to even put that piece on, because the temptation is to rest it on its back, and those are the first things that are going to snap off, or those long skinny guns there. So I'm removing the masking around this back gunner's position, and also I need to remove it over the blue engines, obviously. Then we'll fire it up and we will see how it lights up. I am not for a moment hoping that this is going to completely light block, because it is paint on a clear part, and that hardly ever completely light blocks. But the glare of the light coming out of it will take care of a lot of the light blocking around the frame. Now, I'm more interested in blocking around the base of that piece than I am around the panes of that window, but that's what she looks like once you've taken those outer masks off. And let me pop a battery on here, see how it looks. There you go. Oops. Again, just holding a battery to it, and then I will bring it down into camera. There you go. There. And it's blocking around the edges of the parts, which is the important thing. Nice. Okay, so I have just taken a couple of minutes to epoxy the bottom of the post into the stand, and I'm using the two epoxy sculpt buckets to kind of hold the ship in the right orientation until that epoxy sets, which, since it's 5 minutes epoxy, should be in about 3 minutes from now. So I've got the wiring soldered in, and that's ready to go. I've got it on a tiny 12-volt battery. I used the one setup that I didn't use on the Winnebago. I'm hoping the battery will last a lot longer here, since it is a much lighter load. There are only 4 SM LEDs that I'm asking it to light, and nothing is blinking or strobing, so hopefully that will take care of the load for a lot longer than the 15 minutes it lasted on the Eagle 5. So while that sets up, I'm doing a little bit of cleanup here on the table, and then we'll start talking about the next steps, which I think, if I can find a really tight sponge, I think I might try dabbing some of that turquoise slash teal paint on there, but I don't know. There's still something that I'm not quite happy with on the paint scheme for this. I don't know exactly what that is, so I'm going to ponder on this for a while before I call it done. Now, I've got an idea in mind, but that would take it out of the realm of the Bad Batch ship. It would make it something else completely different, so I haven't decided whether I'm going to do that yet or not. Okay, now that the post has gone nice and solid and everything is happy and good, one last task is to glue this bottom base on. That's why I cover up this wiring. Before I do that, I'll show off the lighting. There's your light on the front, and of course your lights in the back. So I just want to cover up those wires to keep them safe and out of the way. Actually, I can do a combination of taping those down and then covering it up with this little half moon shape so they don't get snagged on anything. Alrighty, I think I've reached the point of whether I need to decide whether I need to continue working on this or whether I'm happy with it. I have gone back in to the wings, to the waffle pattern on the TIE Fighter wings, and I've re-blacked them. Well, I didn't re-black them completely, but I took away some of the streaking that I had on there. I am just too old school, I guess. The idea of those being dirtied up did not appeal to me. So I went back in and I re-blacked them. And then I'm gone in with a little tiny brush, little tiny two-haired dabby brush. And I tried to dab on some of that bluish teal to make it look like chipped up paint rather than the streaking that I had. And I think I'm good, but it's just so unusual for me, this subject is, that I just don't know whether I've stopped or not. So I'm going to walk away from it, and then I'll come back and determine whether or not I am, in fact, done. It's very close. I'm really happy with it. Now, at the scale of this, you're not going to get all of the detail in than you would if it were a 72 scale or larger. But indicating the scale is basically what I'd like to do. Of course, a lot of the scenes you see in the show are very close up, like on the hatch here. You'll see a very good close up of the gun that shows a lot of detail. And you know, once you reduce that, there's only so much detail you can capture. So I'm trying to keep the colors correct overall, and I think that's about all any of us can do. I'm going to put the camera down here for a second so that I can pull the kit up and light it and see. You can see how it looks like all lit up. There you go. There's the blue and the red in the front. It's strange because what I'm having to wrap my head around is in the timeline of this show, even though it's a clean, crisp Imperial craft, it has fallen into dirt and disrepair, almost like a Rebel craft would have been. And Rebel craft, since you've always seen them that way, you're used to it. This is to me as jarring as a really clean X-Wing would be, because I'm used to seeing X-Wings all dirtied up. So dirtying up an Imperial craft is not something that comes easily to me. Morning, everybody. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week. It's past the last work day on the Marauder because I finished it up yesterday. What I'm doing today is what I normally do when I have time left over at the end of the week, and that is get in trouble. I have a second copy of this kit. Now, this kit was sent to me by the fine people at Iwata. This was sent to me by Tom Grossman so that I could have the templates made and ready to work on for the lesson at Wonderfest. And I wanted to have that in plenty of time. It was looking like I may not have gotten it before my upcoming trip, which is next week. So I went out and picked up one, and I've had it kind of stashed in the back, so that, you know, in case I didn't get it in time, I would have something to start working on. Well, I have this one done. It's looking nice, and now that I have a little bit of time left at the end of the week, I'm going to try something that I'm going to be showing off at the painting class, and that involves the wings. Now, I have this second set of wings because I have the second kit, so I'm getting them ready to paint up, and what I'm going to be doing is showing how to throw a logo on there or throw a design on there that can help customize your Marauder to whatever particular allegiance you have, whether it's trying to make it canon to the show or just, you know, going off the grid and making up your own version. So the first thing I did was clip these off the sprues, and I got a coat of the gray sealer primer on it, and now I need to start from scratch and paint the black waffles on here, and then everything I'm planning to do today we can finish up today and have a way to finish out the week. So let me get some black on these wings, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, I've been having some fun. I've just thrown down some different logos. We have the Mythosaur. We have a Mandalorian Death Head there. We have various degrees of Imperial markings. I'm trying out some different color schemes. You know how you might if you're taking over an old Imperial ship, you might want to start your own Red Army. This one I did sort of like the sequel trilogy where they made their TIE fighters with the white waffle pattern and the black markings. So I'm having a bit of fun with that, and what I'm going to do, I realized that I needed to put the logos on before I painted the frames, because I'm going to cover up this entire area to paint the gray frame. And I can see now I might want to go back in and paint the black back on that. But just to show what kind of fun you can have in making your own, I kept to the Star Wars universe. I could have very obviously, put a Klingon symbol on here or something, which, I think my airbrush would have, I think it would have revolted on me. I think it would have rebelled at the idea of me crossing the streams like that. So we're going to let these dry, then pull up the masks, and then we'll get ready to remask them to repaint the framework. So let me touch this bit first, and then we'll let it all dry and take an early lunch. Okay, we're getting ready to remove the masking now that everything's had a chance to dry. I want to take the masks off because I'm going to end up putting the bigger masks back over top of them, and they're just going to end up sticking to it anyway, but they might hinder my ability to put the masks down to begin with. So that's why I'm doing that. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. And we'll try this one on the red side here. Oh, that's nice too. And some of these larger ones. Now, like I said, these are all merely suggestions. And if they come out a little rough, that's okay too, because you could imagine that they were hand painted on there by whoever commandeered the vehicle. So it's entirely possible that they wouldn't be the cleanest versions of the logos, as if they were put on at some sort of Imperial body shop or Imperial ship-making facility, particularly since it's being painted on this irregular surface. So yeah, they could come out a little bit sloppy. You might even want to go in there and put some paint drips on it to make it look like it was painted in a hurry. See how some of these bigger ones look. Now that's looking kind of nice. And this one on this side. Now there's one more that I'm saving that I want to put down, and that is the official Bad Batch logo. And I think I want to put it on the wing here, even though I know it's not canon. I think I want to put it on the wing of the actual build. Okay, I just put the old Clone Force 88 logo on the wing there. I don't know if this is going to upset any purists, any Star Wars purists out there, or Bad Batch purists, but I think it's a nice looking design. I think it goes well there. I've chosen a sand tan rather than a stark white on that, and I think I'm going to go in by hand and maybe put in some drips and stuff to make it look more hand painted. But I think it gives it a little bit of panache. Here's the wing with the masking removed from the logo. Boy, I like that. I don't care if it's canon or not. I like it. I think one on one side is enough. I don't think we need to go plastering, and it's not a NASCAR. But I think one is enough. Now I'm going to go back and get the frames ready for painting. I'll mask all of the waffle plates here and get them ready to paint the frameworks. Alrighty, I've got the masks on the waffle sections of the wings. I am ready to get that gray paint back out, which was the medium gray of the New Worlds Madea New Worlds paint. this stuff I really like. Now I picked up one of the jars of paint, or one of the bottles out of this selection, and it was very poorly put together. It was nothing but sediment and sand and pigment, and I couldn't use it. It was unusable. So I've gone through and tried to check to make sure that none of the rest of them are like that. But luckily the gray is fine. So a little bit of I need to get the reducer out because this is thick paint. So let me get that out. And I don't need to shake that. Why am I shaking that? I should be shaking the paint. Okay, just like we did a few days ago, we're going to take the masks off of these wings here and see how they turned out. I have no worries that anything went awry. All the confidence in the world. Now, just go ahead and strip these off. Look how clean those lines are. Man, it always amazes me how clean those lines are, and I've done this a million times. Look at that. See, it looks all sloppy, and then you put the mask down and you do this unifying thing on the wing by painting the gray in, and all of a sudden everything looks cleaner, it looks more intentional, it looks brighter. Look at that. Look at that. And these are all just existing as options, ideas for how you could make your own wing. Now, I could see doing this without the outside circle, just doing the rebel sigil, or logo, sigil, something like that. And if I hadn't glued in the top wing I said and/or. I didn't mean to say and/or. Pull these off of the other, because those wings are movable. But I'm not going to try to remove them because they've kind of snapped into place, and I don't want to risk breaking anything. But oh, look at that! I like that. I was never a big fan of the sequel movies, how they did the white TIE Fighter waffle pattern, but I could see that working. There's your Death's Head. Now I could see doing this, how interesting this would be if this whole kit was done like The Mandalorian, where it was all done in chrome. Rather than, done in bare metal rather than the gray painted stuff. Okay, put that up. Well, there you go. I do kind of dig that. And for you full logo completionists there. And then here is the logo on the wings. Nice. And one last time we have the finished Havoc Marauder with the lights on. Just a real simple 4 LEDs. There's your clone trooper logo on there. And then the underside there. So you can see what's going on. And I will bend up the wings one last time, even though that's not how I would normally have this displayed. If you're going to do the landed version, then you would use the wings up and the landing gear. And it's true, this does have a rather bird of prey-ish look to it. I'm sure the people at Star Wars are well aware of how much it looks like a bird of prey, but that's the design. And that is it. That is it for this week's on the Havoc Marauder build. I'll flip the lights on one more time so you can see. It's a fun little build and really easy to light. Folks sometimes ask me, if I wanted to light a kit, where would I start? And I always say start with an X-Wing because it's really the easiest thing in the world to light. this is a close second. If you are on the Imperial side of things and you want a good kit to light up, this would be where I would start. It is the Havoc Marauder 1/44 scale. It's a neat little addition to your fleet. Now, I was not all that familiar with the series before this, and I started watching some episodes, and frankly, it sucks you in. It's a pretty good little series. Now, I'll have to go back and catch season 1. I started with the beginning of season 2, so who knows what intrigue I've already missed. So until next week, when I will not be here, I'm on the road next week, so there will be no video. I might shoot some stuff and cut it together and have some content for you in 2 weeks. But there will be no video shooting next week, so pull up your favorite rerun. Go watch something back from the back catalog that you might not have had time to see, and I'll be back here as soon as I can. So until we meet again, be safe, be smart, be kind to each other, and I'll see you here real soon.